The massive refugee ship drifted through the cold darkness of space, its hull scarred by laser burns and missile impacts. Inside, 40,000 beings huddled together in cargo bays never meant to hold so many living souls. They came from Kepler, 442b, a world that once bloomed with purple forests and crystal cities. Now was nothing but radioactive glass and ash. Commander Sarah Chun stood on the bridge of the human vessel HSS Compassion, watching the refugee ship on her main screen. Her crew waited for orders. The Galactic Council had already turned these refugees away from 17 different systems. Nobody wanted to take in survivors from a losing side of an interstellar war. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from Earth Command," Lieutenant Rodriguez said, his fingers dancing over his console. "They want to know our status regarding the refugee vessel." Sarah took a deep breath. She knew what Earth Command expected. Humanity was still new to the galactic stage, barely 50 years since first contact. Taking in 40,000 alien refugees would strain resources and potentially anger the powerful Zealoty Empire, who had destroyed the refugees' homeworld. "Tell Earth Command we're assessing the situation," Sarah replied. She turned to her science officer. "What's the condition of their ship?" "Critical, Captain. Life support failing in multiple sections. They have maybe 72 hours before systems start shutting down completely. Their food synthesizers are operating at 10% capacity. Medical bay is overwhelmed. I'm reading approximately 3,000 injured, 500 critical." Sarah's jaw tightened. She'd seen enough death in her career. These weren't soldiers or politicians who'd started the war. They were families, children, elderly beings who'd done nothing except live on the wrong planet at the wrong time. "Open a channel to the refugee ship," she ordered. The view screen flickered to life, revealing a haggard alien face. The being had 4 eyes, arranged in a diamond pattern, and skin that shifted between blue and green. Despite the alien features, Sarah recognized the universal look of exhaustion and despair. "I am Velmar, speaking for the survivors of Kepler, 442b, the alien said, his translator rendering his words in accented English. "Please, we mean no harm. We seek only refuge. The Zealoty destroyed everything. We have nowhere else to go. This is Commander Chun of Earth Vessel HSS Compassion. We've received your distress signal. How many beings are aboard your ship?" 40,093, Commander. "We've lost over 1,000 during our journey. Please, we've been turned away by everyone. The Mordak said we'd bring trouble. The Vegan Alliance claimed they had no room. Even the peaceful Cetians refused us. We're dying." Sarah muted the channel and turned to her bridge crew. "Options. Captain, taking them in would be..." Lieutenant Commander Walsh, her first officer, shook his head. "The political ramifications alone could set back human-alien relations by decades. The Zealoty Empire controls 37 systems. They won't look kindly on anyone harboring their enemies." "These aren't enemies, Commander. They're refugees. Civilians. The Zealoty won't see it that way." Dr. Yuki Tanaka's voice came over the comm from medical. "Captain, I've been monitoring their medical situation. They have a bacterial infection spreading through their population. Without proper treatment, they could lose thousands more in the next week alone. Their young and elderly are particularly vulnerable." Sarah unmuted the channel. "Velmar, I need complete transparency. Why did the Zealoty attack your world?" The alien's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. A gesture Sarah had learned indicated deep emotion. "We refused to allow them to strip mine our sacred mountains. Those mountains contained rare minerals, yes, but they also held the remains of our ancestors, our history carved in crystal. When we said no, they decided to take our entire world by force." "And your military?" "What military?" Velmar's voice cracked. "We were artists, scientists, farmers. We hadn't fought a war in over 300 years. The Zealoty fleet arrived, demanded surrender, and when our government asked for time to evacuate the sacred sites, they began bombing. 3 billion died in the first day." Sarah closed her eyes. The familiar weight of command pressed down on her shoulders. She thought of Earth's own history, the times when refugees had been turned away to face death, and the times when compassion had prevailed. "Captain, Walsh whispered urgently. Earth Command is demanding an answer. The Zealothi have noticed our presence. They're asking why we stopped here. Through the view screen, Sarah could see into the refugee ship. Families clustered together, children clinging to parents. She saw makeshift medical stations where volunteer healers worked without proper supplies. She saw beings sharing their last rations with those even hungrier. Velmar, prepare your people for transfer, Sarah said, her voice steady and clear. We're bringing you aboard. The bridge erupted in surprised voices, but Sarah raised her hand for silence. Captain, Earth Command will, Walsh began. Earth Command isn't here, Sarah interrupted. Those 40,000 beings are. Lieutenant Rodriguez, signal all human vessels in the sector. Tell them we need emergency assistance for a large-scale refugee operation. Dr. Tanaka, prepare medical for incoming wounded. We'll take the critical cases first. Captain, the Zealothi are hailing us, Rodriguez reported, tension in his voice. They're ordering us to move away from the refugee vessel. Sarah straightened her uniform. On screen, a Zealothi commander appeared, his crystalline features arranged in what she recognized as displeasure. Human vessel, you will cease communication with the criminal refugees immediately. These beings are enemies of the Empire. Commander, I see only civilians in distress, Sarah replied calmly. Human law and basic decency require us to render aid to those in need. Your decency will earn you the Empire's wrath. These refugees harbor terrorists who destroyed Zealothi mining equipment. After you attacked their world, the Zealothi's features shifted to deeper red. They defied the Empire. The consequences were their choice. Stand aside, human, or share their fate. Sarah felt her crew's eyes on her. This was the moment that would define not just her career, but humanity's place in the galactic community. They could play it safe, follow the example of 17 other species who'd chosen politics over principles. Or they could show the galaxy what humanity truly stood for. Commander, I'm sending you data on Earth's history. You'll finally have some experience with refugees. We've learned that turning away those in need isn't just wrong. It diminishes us all. These 40,000 beings are under human protection now. You dare, Sarah cut the transmission. All hands, this is the captain. Prepare for emergency refugee intake. I want every available space converted to temporary shelters. Replicate blankets, food, medical supplies. Engineering, boost life support to maximum. We're about to have 40,000 guests, and I want them to know that humanity stands for something. She turned to Walsh. Contact Mars Colony, the moon bases, every human settlement. Tell them we need volunteers, supplies, temporary housing, and give me a direct line to Earth's president. If we're going to do this, we're doing it right. Over the next hours, the transfer began. Shuttle after shuttle brought refugees from their dying ship to the Compassion and her sister vessels that responded to the call. The humans worked with efficiency born of their own history. They knew what it meant to flee destruction, to seek shelter among strangers. The first child to board the Compassion was a small Keplerian girl, her 4 eyes wide with fear and wonder. A human ensign knelt down to her level and offered her a chocolate bar, the first many refugees had seen of human kindness. As refugees flooded in, stories emerged. Artists who'd watched their galleries burn. Scientists whose centuries of research vanished in orbital bombardment. Farmers whose fields would never bloom again. Each carried trauma, but also hope. Hope that these strange bipedal beings might be different. Dr. Tanaka worked 18 straight hours, adapting human medical equipment to alien physiology. Engineers rigged atmosphere processors to accommodate Keplerian breathing needs. Cooks learned to prepare food that alien digestive systems could handle. The entire ship transformed into a massive rescue operation. Captain, Earth Command is furious, Walsh reported quietly during a brief moment of calm. The Zealothi are threatening to withdraw from 3 trade agreements. The Mordak are questioning whether humanity can be trusted to follow galactic protocols. Sarah watched a group of human crew members teaching Keplerian children a card game in the converted cargo bay. Let them question. Those children are alive because we acted. That matters more than trade agreements. The president wants to speak with you. Sarah nodded and took the call in her ready room. President Martinez's face appeared on her personal screen, his expression grave, but not angry. Commander Chun, you've created quite a situation. Mr. President, I acted according to human principles and galactic humanitarian law. I know. The Zealothi are demanding we turn over the refugees. Sir, these people fled genocide. If we send them back, we're not sending anyone back, the president interrupted. I've been in emergency session with the Global Council. Earth stands behind your decision. We're preparing refugee facilities across 3 continents. Mars has offered to take 10,000. The moon colonies are converting mining habitats to temporary housing. Sarah felt relief wash over her. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet. The Zealothi are mobilizing their fleet. They say harboring their enemies is an act of war. These aren't enemies. They're survivors. I know that. You know that. But the Zealothi operate on different principles. We need to prepare for potential consequences. The president paused. Commander, what you did today, it reminded us who we are. Humanity didn't reach the stars by playing it safe. We got here by doing what's right, even when it's hard. After the call, Sarah returned to the bridge. The main screen showed Earth in the distance, blue and green and beautiful. Soon, 40,000 beings who'd lost their world would see it as their new hope. Captain, Velmar's voice came over calm. We cannot express our gratitude. 17 species turned us away. You didn't even hesitate. That's because we remember, Sarah said. We remember every time in our history when people needed help and didn't get it. We remember the boats turned away, the borders closed, the times we failed to be our best selves. Not today. Not anymore. As the last refugees transferred aboard, the Zealothi fleet appeared on long-range sensors. 12 warships, each one capable of devastating a planet. They approached in attack formation. Battle stations. Walsh asked. No, Sarah said. We're not warriors. We're rescuers. Open a channel to all human vessels and colonies. Let them see what we're protecting. The channel opened, broadcasting to every human in the system. The view screens filled with images from throughout the ship. Refugees receiving medical care, children playing with human crew members, families sharing meals with their rescuers. The galaxy would see not enemies or criminals, but people in need receiving help. Zealothi fleet, this is Commander Chun. These refugees are under human protection. We've done nothing but offer humanitarian aid to those in desperate need. If you attack us for showing compassion, the entire galaxy will witness it. They'll see you firing on hospital ships and refugee transports. Is it the legacy the Empire wants? The Zealothi fleet slowed, but didn't stop. Weapons powered up. Sarah's crew tensed, ready for whatever came next. Then, something unexpected happened. A message came through from the Seatian ambassador. The Seatian Republic stands with humanity. Any attack on refugees will be considered an attack on all civilized species. Another signal. The Vegan Alliance has reconsidered. We offer sanctuary to any refugees humanity cannot accommodate. More messages flooded in. Species that had remained silent, worlds that had closed their borders, suddenly found their voices. The sight of humanity risking everything for strangers had awakened something. Shame, perhaps, or inspiration. Zealothi fleet is holding position, Rodriguez reported. They're not advancing. On the screen, Sarah watched the refugee children playing, finally safe, finally protected. She thought of Earth's history, its failures and triumphs, and how this moment would be remembered. Send this message to the Zealothi commander, she said. Today, humanity chose compassion over fear, principle over profit. These 40,000 souls represent more than refugees. They represent a choice. The choice between what's easy and what's right. We've made ours. The galaxy is watching to see what choice you make. The bridge fell silent, waiting. The fate of 40,000 refugees, and perhaps humanity's future in the stars, hung in the balance. But whatever came next, Sarah knew they'd already won something important. They'd shown the galaxy that humanity would not be just another species that looked away when others suffered. They'd shown that Earth's children had brought their best qualities to the stars. Not their weapons or technology, but their capacity for empathy, Their willingness to risk everything for strangers, their stubborn insistence that every life mattered. The refugee ship, now empty, drifted dark and silent. But on human vessels, 40,000 voices rose in songs of gratitude. Children laughed for the first time in months, and hope, that most human of qualities, began to spread like light in the darkness. Whatever tomorrow brought, today humanity had chosen to be better. And sometimes, that's all it takes to change the course of history. The Zelithy fleet hung in space like predators waiting to strike. 12 warships, their crystalline hulls refracting starlight into deadly rainbows. On the bridge of the HSS Compassion, every human held their breath. They'd rescued 40,000 refugees, and now the bill might come due in blood. Commander Sarah Chun stood rigid, watching the tactical display. The refugees were distributed across 7 human vessels, with the most critical medical cases aboard the Compassion. If the Zelithy opened fire, they'd be committing a massacre that would echo across the galaxy. "Captain, incoming transmission from Earth," Lieutenant Rodriguez announced, his voice tight with controlled fear. It's not from command. It's a general broadcast." On screen, the main viewer shifted from the Zelithy fleet to show Earth itself. But it wasn't an official government transmission. Instead, the screen filled with faces, thousands upon thousands of human faces. They stood in Times Square, in London's Trafalgar Square, in Tokyo's Shibuya district, in Mumbai's Gateway Plaza. Every major city on Earth showed crowds gathering. A young woman in New York held up a sign, "We stand with the refugees." In Beijing, an elderly man's banner read in multiple languages, "Humanity means human unity." Children in Sao Paulo had painted their faces blue and green, mimicking Keplerian skin. The crowds were singing, a simple melody that spread from city to city, an old Earth song about bringing light to darkness. "Captain," Walsh said softly, "it's not just Earth. I'm getting feeds from Mars Colony, the lunar cities, even to mining stations in the asteroid belt." The screen split into dozens of feeds. Mars colonists stood in their pressure suits outside their domes, holding lights against the red sky. Moonbase Alpha had projected "Refugees Welcome" in letters visible from space. The asteroid miners, tough men and women who rarely agreed on anything, had painted refugee symbols on their ships. But what happened next stunned even Sarah. Personal messages began flooding in from human ships across the galaxy. Merchant vessels changed course to offer assistance. Private cargo haulers volunteered their holds for refugee transport. The science vessel Einstein offered to convert its labs to medical facilities. Even the crusty miners of the Kuiper station announced they'd take in 1,000 refugees, though they'd better be ready to work. "Zelithy Commander is hailing us again," Rodriguez reported. Sarah straightened her uniform. "Put him through." The crystalline face appeared, but something had changed. The Zelithy's features had shifted from angry red to a more subdued orange. "Commander Chun, what is this display?" "This is humanity, Commander. When we see suffering, we act. Not because it's politically convenient, not because it's profitable, but because it's right. Your entire species risks war for strangers." A new voice interrupted. Velmar, the refugee leader, had been patched into the communication. "Commander Zeldar, if I may speak?" The Zelithy commander's crystals flared. "You dare address me, criminal?" "I address you as one being to another," Velmar said, his 4 eyes steady despite his exhaustion. "Yes, we defied your empire. We refused to let you destroy our sacred places. But look at our punishment. 3 billion dead, our world in ashes, 40,000 survivors out of billions. Is this justice? Is this the legacy the Zelithy Empire wishes? Genocide. You harbored terrorists who destroyed Empire property. We harbored protesters who disabled mining equipment to prevent the desecration of graves millions of years old. They used paint and computer viruses, not weapons. You responded with planet killers." Sarah watched the exchange, noting how the Zelithy commander's crystalline features continued to shift colors, the alien equivalent of internal conflict. Around them, the human fleet had quietly repositioned, not in attack formation, but forming a protective shell around the refugee vessels. The message was clear. To get to the refugees, the Zealoty would have to go through humanity. Captain Dr. Tanaka's voice came through private comm. I need you to see something in Medical Bay 3. Can it wait, Doctor? I think the Zealoty commander needs to see this too. Sarah made a quick decision. Commander Zeldar, I'm going to share a feed from our Medical Bay. You should see who you're threatening. The screen split again. In Medical Bay 3, Dr. Tanaka stood among rows of beds filled with injured refugees. But she wasn't focusing on the adults. Instead, the camera showed a small Keplerian child, perhaps 4 years old in human terms, clutching a stuffed Earth bear a crew member had given her. Half her face was covered in burns from the bombing. This is Mira, Dr. Tanaka said. Her parents died, shielding her from debris when your fleet bombed their school. She hasn't spoken since. The only thing that calms her is that toy bear. Commander Zeldar, is this child your enemy? Is she a terrorist? The Zealoty commander said nothing, his crystals cycling through colors. Dr. Tanaka moved to the next bed. This is Teacher Velnor, 800 years old, ancient even by Keplerian standards. He's taught generations of children about art, music, and peace. He's dying from radiation exposure because he went back into a collapsed shelter to save his students. Are these the dangerous criminals your empire fears? The feed continued. A young Keplerian male with both legs amputated, injured while helping evacuate a hospital. A female who'd lost her eyesight shielding younglings from a blast. Elderly beings who'd given their food rations to ensure children ate. Each story was one of sacrifice, courage, and love, not the profile of terrorists or enemies. Enough, Commander Zeldar said, but his voice had lost its edge. Another alert sounded. Captain, we're receiving a priority transmission from the Galactic Council. Sarah felt her eyebrows rise. The Council rarely acted quickly on anything, known for deliberations that could last decades. Put it through. The screen filled with the Council chamber. Representatives from 57 species sat in their designated areas. The Council speaker, an ancient Etherian whose species had achieved spaceflight before humans discovered fire, gestured with one translucent appendage. Commander Chun of Earth, Commander Zeldar of the Zealoty Empire, this emergency session has been called to address the current crisis. The Council has reviewed the situation. We have a proposition. Sarah and the Zealoty commander both waited. The destruction of Kepler 442b has been monitored and documented. The response was disproportionate to the provocation. The Council proposes the following. The refugees will be granted protected status under galactic law. They will be distributed among willing worlds for resettlement. The Zealoty Empire will provide reparations to assist in this resettlement as acknowledgement of excessive force. This is outrageous. Commander Zeldar's crystals flared bright red. The Empire does not pay reparations to criminals. The alternative, the Council speaker continued calmly, is a full Council investigation into war crimes, including the use of planet killer weapons on a largely civilian population. The evidence is quite clear. Your own military recordings show you began bombardment while evacuation ships were still loading. The Zealoty commander fell silent. Furthermore, the speaker added, humanity's response has been noted. Their willingness to risk war to protect innocent lives exemplifies the highest ideals of galactic civilization. The Council moves to fast-track Earth's application for full Council membership, with all the protections and trade benefits that includes. Sarah heard her bridge crew's surprised gasps. Full Council membership usually took centuries to achieve. Earth had just jumped ahead by generations. Captain, Velmar's voice was thick with emotion. Your people barely know us, yet you risk everything. Why? Sarah thought of Earth's history, the Underground Railroad, the Kindertransport, the Vietnamese boat lifts, every time humans had chosen compassion despite the cost. Because, Velmar, we've been refugees too. We've fled wars, disasters, persecution. We know what it means to need shelter and find only closed doors. When we reached the stars, we promised ourselves we'd be better. A new transmission interrupted, this time from one of the Zealoty ships. A younger Zealoty appeared on a side screen, his crystals a nervous yellow. Commander, I must speak. My mate, she is Keplerian. We met during a diplomatic exchange 30 years ago. We have children. When the order came to destroy Kepler, 442b, I thought of her family. I cannot be part of this anymore. Sub-Commander Zelkar, you speak treason, Commander Zeldar warned. I speak truth, Commander. Look at what we've become. We destroy worlds over mining disputes. We orphan children over property damage. This is not the empire I swore to serve. More voices joined from other Zealoty ships. Officers admitting doubts, sharing stories of Keplerian friends, questioning orders that led to genocide. The mighty Zealoty unity was cracking. On Earth, the crowds had grown larger. Someone had started projecting images of the refugees onto buildings, families reuniting on human ships, children getting their first hot meals in weeks, doctors working to save lives. The images spread across human space, each colony adding its voice to the chorus of welcome. Commander Zeldar, Sarah said quietly, you have a choice. You can fire on hospital ships and refugee vessels, killing thousands of innocents and the humans protecting them. The galaxy will watch. Your own officers will carry out orders they question. History will remember the Zealoty Empire as murderers of children. Or you could be better. You could be the commander who chose justice over vengeance, who helped heal wounds instead of deepening them. The Zealoty commander's crystals had shifted to a deep purple, a color Sarah had never seen before. When he spoke, his voice was different, almost tired. My own daughter, she's about the age of that burned child. She plays with a crystal sculpture I gave her, much like that Earth bear. He was silent for a long moment. Around him, the bridges of his warships waited for orders that would define their empire's future. Zealoty fleet, this is Commander Zeldar. Power down weapons. These refugees, these beings are under council protection now. We will discuss reparations. The relief on the Compassion's bridge was palpable. Several crew members had to sit down as tension drained from their bodies. But Sarah remained standing, knowing this was just the beginning. Commander Zeldar, she said, thank you. This took courage. Perhaps I'm simply tired of being the villain in someone else's story. His image flickered. Commander Chun, what you did today, risking your people for strangers, the Empire has much to learn from humanity. As the Zealoty fleet began to withdraw, messages flooded in from across the galaxy. The Centauri Collective offered advanced medical equipment. The Rigelian Federation volunteered to help build new colonies. Even the isolationist Sigma Draconians emerged from their centuries of silence to offer agricultural supplies. Captain, Walsh said, wonder in his voice, we're getting offers from everywhere. Housing, food, medical aid, even job training programs. It's like the whole galaxy, suddenly, remembered how to care. Velmar appeared on the screen again, tears flowing from all four eyes. Commander Chun, my people have a saying, in the darkest void, a single star can guide millions home. Today, humanity was that star. But the Real surprise came from Earth itself. The president appeared on screen, his face showing a mix of pride and amusement. Commander Chun, I have an interesting problem. We prepared facilities for 40,000 refugees. But I'm getting calls from every nation, every city, even small towns. Everyone wants to host refugees. We have room for 3 times the number. The Martians are actually competing with the lunar colonies over who gets to welcome more families. Sarah smiled, the first genuine smile since this crisis began. Mr. President, I think we can work with that problem. Over the next hours, the complex work of resettlement began. Refugee families were matched with human communities based on needs and skills. The Artist Collective in Neo Paris requested all the Keplerian musicians and painters. The agricultural domes of Mars wanted the farmers. Universities competed for the scientists and teachers. Even the rough miners of the asteroid belt had specific requests. They wanted the engineers and anyone willing to learn spacecraft maintenance. But it wasn't just practical matters. Human children sent drawings to refugee younglings. Elderly humans who'd been refugees themselves recorded welcome messages. Religious and philosophical leaders from every human tradition offered spiritual support. Chefs began experimenting with Keplerian-safe recipes. Musicians composed songs blending human and Keplerian harmonies. "Captain, you need to see this," Rodriguez called out, his voice filled with something like awe. On the screen, the refugee children had gathered in one of the Compassion's converted cargo bays. They were drawing on the walls, not with paint, but with a bioluminescent secretion natural to their species. The pictures showed their journey, the destruction of their world, the cold journey through space, the closed doors of 17 systems. But the final panel showed human ships surrounding them with light, hands reaching out, and in the center, a blue-green planet with open arms. "They're calling it the day the stars said yes," Dr. Tanaka explained. "It's becoming a song among them." About the day, strangers became family. As Sarah watched the children draw, adding details of human crew members who'd helped them, she thought about the ripple effects of this moment. The Zelothy Empire would have to confront its actions. The Galactic Council would have to reconsider its refugee policies. Humanity would emerge as a moral leader among the stars. But more than that, 40,000 beings who'd lost everything had found hope. Children who'd witnessed horror were learning to smile again. Families torn apart by war were rebuilding. And across human space, communities were preparing to welcome new neighbors who would enrich their worlds with new perspectives, arts, and dreams. "Captain," Velmar said in a private message, "I must tell you something. When we fled our world, we managed to save one thing: seeds from our sacred forest. Purple trees that take 1,000 years to mature, that sing in the wind. We thought we'd never plant them again. But now, would Earth have room for a forest that sings?" Sarah's throat tightened with emotion. "Earth would be honored, Velmar. We have a place called New Eden Valley. It's protected land, set aside for beauty and wonder. Your singing trees will be perfect there." As the day's cycle ended and the refugees settled into their temporary quarters, something remarkable happened. The human crew had organized a welcome gathering in the main hangar. Tables filled with food adapted for both species. Musicians playing a mixture of human and Keplerian instruments. Children of both species playing together, already forgetting they were supposed to be different. Sarah stood watching from the upper observation deck, Walsh beside her. "You know, this changes everything," he said. "We've set a precedent. The next time there are refugees, everyone will look to humanity." "Good," Sarah replied. "Let them look. Let them see that choosing compassion over fear is possible. That protecting the vulnerable makes us stronger, not weaker." A communication alert chimed. It was from an unexpected source, the Zelothy homeworld. Not military command, but civilian channels. Messages from ordinary Zelothy citizens who'd seen the broadcasts. Some expressing shame at their empire's actions. Others sharing stories of Keplerian friends. A few even offering to help with resettlement. "The universe is watching," Walsh observed. Below them, a human child was teaching a Keplerian child to play hopscotch. The refugee child's laughter, the first heard from any of them since rescue, rang through the hangar. It was the sound of healing beginning, of hope taking root. Sarah thought of the morning's impossible choice: turn away refugees or risk war. Now, as she watched humans and Keplerians sharing food and stories, she knew they'd chosen correctly. They'd shown the galaxy that humanity's greatest strength wasn't its technology or military might. It was its stubborn belief that every life had value, that compassion could triumph over fear. The stars outside remained cold and distant, but inside human ships, warmth was spreading. 40,000 refugees were discovering they weren't just survivors. They were newly welcomed members of an extended human family that spanned from Earth to the furthest colonies. Tomorrow would bring challenges. Integration wouldn't be simple. Cultural differences would cause friction. Resources would be strained. But tonight, in this moment, the galaxy had witnessed something extraordinary. A species barely half a century into space, travel, teaching ancient empires about mercy, solidarity, and hope. As Sarah finally retired to her quarters, she found a message waiting. It was from Mira, the burned child from the medical bay. With help from a human nurse, she'd drawn a picture, a stick figure with 2 legs and 2 arms holding hands with a figure with 4 eyes. Above them, stars that looked like smiling faces. At the bottom, in carefully practiced human letters, she'd written her first words since the bombing. "Thank you for saying yes." Sarah carefully saved the image. Someday, when humans face their own dark moments among the stars, she wanted to remember this. The day humanity chose love over fear and changed the course of galactic history. The day 40,000 refugees found not just shelter, but home. 3 months had passed since humanity shocked the galaxy by welcoming 40,000 Keplerian refugees. Earth's continents now hosted purple leaf gardens where refugee communities grew their traditional foods. The singing forests of New Eden Valley had taken root, their haunting melodies drawing visitors from around the world. But integration was proving more complex than anyone anticipated. In the city of New Geneva, former refugee Teclon stood before a mixed crowd of humans and Keplerians. As one of the few Keplerian engineers, he'd been working on a project that could revolutionize both societies. Behind him, a prototype machine hummed with quiet energy. "My friends," Teclon began, his 4 eyes scanning the audience. "When we fled our dying world, we brought more than just our bodies. We brought our knowledge. Today, I share with you the gift of atmospheric processing, technology that can transform dead worlds into living ones." The machine projected a hologram showing a barren planet gradually developing an atmosphere, water cycle, and eventually life. The humans in the audience leaned forward, fascinated. "This technology," Teclon continued, "failed to save our world from weapons. But it can give life to worlds that never had it. Mars could have breathable air in 50 years instead of 500. The moon colonies could have true atmospheres. Dead worlds throughout human space could bloom." In the back of a room, Marcus Webb, leader of the Earth First movement, stood up. "And why should we trust alien technology? How do we know this isn't some long-term plan to make Earth dependent on Keplerian science?" Teclon's skin shifted from blue to green, a sign of sadness among his people. "Because, Mr. Webb, we have no world to return to. Earth is our home now. Your success is our success. Your children and our children will share the same future." A young human scientist, Dr. Lisa Park, raised her hand. "I've been working with Teclon's team for 2 months. This technology is beyond anything we've developed. It doesn't just create atmosphere. It creates self-sustaining ecosystems. We could terraform a dozen worlds with this and create dozen rivals for Earth's dominance," Webb shot back. Before the argument could escalate, a small Keplerian child tugged at Webb's sleeve. She looked up at him with her 4 eyes and held out a drawing. Earth and Kepler 442 be holding hands. "My teacher says Earth saved us. Why are you angry at us?" Webb stared at the child, his face cycling through emotions. The room held its breath. Meanwhile, on Mars, a different kind of integration was unfolding. The Keplerian farmers had transformed Dome 7 into something unprecedented. Their bioluminescent crops not only grew in Martian soil, but enriched it. The dome glowed at night with soft purple light, visible from orbit. Commander Sarah Chun, now serving as humanity's first refugee integration coordinator, stood with President Martinez and Velmar in the observation tower overlooking the Martian farming district. "Remarkable," the president said. "Our scientists say those crops are producing 3 times the oxygen of Earth plants while requiring half the water." Velmar's eyes, all 4 of them, crinkled with what Sarah had learned was a smile. "We had to be efficient on our world. Resources were precious. We learned to make life thrive in difficult places. Which is why I've called you both here," the president continued. "The Galactic Council has made an unprecedented offer. They want humanity and the Keplerian refugees to jointly colonize the Sagittarius sector, 12 potentially habitable worlds that no single species has been able to successfully settle." Sarah felt her pulse quicken. "Joint colonization? That's never been done before. Because no species has ever integrated refugees like we have," the president replied. "The council's been watching. Human determination combined with Keplerian biological expertise could succeed where others failed." Velmar's skin shifted to bright blue, excitement. "My people would be honored." But his color dimmed slightly. There are those among both our species who resist integration. The attacks last week. Sarah's jaw tightened. The attacks he referred to have been minor, but troubling. Human purists vandalizing Keplerian shops. Young Keplerians, traumatized by their losses, lashing out at human authority. Neither represented the majority, but fear could spread like wildfire. Which brings me to my second announcement, the president said. Sarah, the Joint Earth-Keplerian Council wants you to lead the colonization effort. You become a symbol to both species, the human who risked everything for refugees. Sir, I'm honored, but I'm a ship commander, not a colony administrator. You're a bridge builder, Velmar corrected gently. My people trust you, and after what you did, many humans see you as representing their best values. Before Sarah could respond, her communicator chimed. Lieutenant Rodriguez's urgent voice filled the room. Commander, we have a situation. The Zelathi Empire is here. Not their military, civilians, thousands of them, in refugee ships. They're requesting asylum. The three leaders exchanged shocked looks. The Zelathi, who'd driven the Keplerians from their world, were now refugees themselves? An hour later, Sarah stood on the bridge of the Compassion, once again facing a moral crisis. On the view screen, battered Zelathi civilian ships drifted in space. These weren't the sleek military vessels they'd faced months ago, but converted transports and private craft held together by desperate engineering. This is Crystal Singer Zelnaya of the Zelathi Democratic Movement. A young Zelathi female appeared on screen. Unlike the military commander they'd faced, her crystalline features showed fear and exhaustion. We request sanctuary from human space. Our empire, the military has turned on its own people. Explain, Sarah said carefully. After the Kepler 442b genocide, many of us protested. We demanded accountability, justice for the Keplerians. The military responded by declaring martial law. When we continued protesting, they began arrests. Then, executions. We had to flee. How many? 8,000 in this fleet. We're trying to escape. Commander Chun, we know what our empire did to the Keplerians was wrong. Some of us have spent months trying to get reparations approved to help rebuild. Now we're hunted for it. Sarah muted the channel and turned to her bridge crew, which now included several Keplerian officers. The tension was palpable. Your thoughts? She asked. Keplerian Navigation Officer Merdan's skin rippled through several colors. Internal conflict made visible. They destroyed our world. 3 billion of us died. And now they want our protectors' help. These civilians oppose that action, Human Operations Officer Walsh pointed out. They're being persecuted for standing with the Keplerians. Or they're lying, Security Chief Torres suggested. This could be an infiltration. Sarah unmuted the channel. Zelnaya, I need you to understand the position you're putting us in. We have 40,000 Keplerian refugees who lost everything to your empire. Asking them to share space with Zelathi, even Zelathi who opposed the genocide, is asking for the nearly impossible. We know, Zelnaya's voice cracked, a sound like breaking crystal. But you humans did the impossible once. You took in refugees when 17 other species turned them away. We have nowhere else to go. The Empire will execute us. The Keplerians have every right to hate us, but our children are innocent. They didn't choose their species any more than Keplerian children chose theirs. On a secondary screen, Sarah could see into the Zelathi refugee ships. The crystal beings looked different from the military Zelathi they'd encountered. Their features were softer, their colors more varied. And there were indeed children, small crystalline beings clinging to their parents. Commander, Dr. Tanaka's voice came through private comm. I'm reading numerous injuries on those ships. Laser burns consistent with Zelathi military weapons. Signs of malnutrition. Whatever else is true, these people have been attacked and are suffering. Sarah made a decision that would once again ripple across the galaxy. Zelnaya, prepare your people for medical scanning and security screening. If you're truly refugees fleeing persecution, humanity will not turn you away. But understand, integration will be complicated. Captain Merdan spoke up, his color deep purple with emotion. My family was on Kepler 442b. All of them. Dead. And you asked me to work alongside their killers. No, Sarah said gently. I asked you to work alongside fellow beings who stood against those killers, who are being hunted for demanding justice for your family. The cycle of hatred has to stop somewhere, Mayor Dan. Maybe it stops here. The Keplerian officer's colors shifted rapidly. Grief, anger, confusion, and finally, a tired gray of resignation. I will trust your judgment, Captain, but keep them away from me. As the Zealoty refugees were processed, their stories emerged. Teachers who'd refused to spread anti-Keplerian propaganda. Workers who'd sabotaged weapons shipments. Families of soldiers who'd refused orders to fire on civilians. Even some military deserters who couldn't stomach the genocide. The reaction across human and Keplerian communities was explosive. Protests erupted on Earth. Some Keplerians demanded the Zealoty be turned away. Some humans, already struggling with one refugee population, balked at taking in another. But others, many others, remembered the principle that had guided them before. In New York, an elderly human woman who'd survived the Holocaust stood before the UN Assembly. I know what it means to flee hatred. I also know what it means to see those who stood against evil punished for their courage. If these Zealoty risked everything to oppose genocide, then turning them away makes us complicit in their persecution. On Mars, a group of Keplerian youth organized a counter-protest. Their leader, a young female named Shira who'd lost her parents in the bombing, spoke through tears. Hatred killed our world. Will we let it poison our new one? These Zealoty chose justice over their own safety. That means something. The integration process was messy. The first meeting between Keplerian and Zealoty refugees took place in a neutral human facility. The tension could have been cut with a molecular blade. Some Keplerians walked out immediately. Others stood frozen, unable to process seeing their destroyer seeking help. Then, Zelnaya did something unexpected. She knelt, a difficult position for a crystalline being, and spoke in broken Keplerian. We failed you. Our empire's crimes cannot be undone. We cannot bring back your dead. But we can dedicate our lives to ensuring it never happens again. We ask not for forgiveness. That is not ours to request. We ask only for the chance to prove that some Zealoty choose justice over empire. An elderly Keplerian, teacher Velnor whom Dr. Tanaka had saved, moved forward slowly. You speak our language? I've been learning. My daughter, she had a Keplerian friend. When the bombs fell, I couldn't save her friend. I learned your language to honor her memory. The old teacher studied her for a long moment. Then, in a gesture that would be remembered in galactic history, he extended one hand. Then, let us teach each other. Hatred has taken enough from all of us. Not everyone accepted this gesture. Many Keplerians and even some humans rejected any cooperation with Zealoty refugees. But enough accepted to begin something new. Mixed communities formed, carefully, tentatively. Zealoty engineers worked alongside humans to improve the atmospheric processors with their crystal technology. Some Keplerian healers, after much soul-searching, began treating injured Zealoty children. The galaxy watched in amazement as humanity orchestrated the impossible, turning ancient enemies into neighbors. It wasn't perfect. Fights broke out. Trust was fragile. But, slowly, something unprecedented emerged. On Luna City, the first mixed school opened. Human, Keplerian, and Zealoty children learned together. The first day was chaos. Parents on all sides worried. Children unsure how to interact. Then, a human girl shared her lunch with a hungry Zealoty boy. A Keplerian child helped a human with their math homework. Small acts, but revolutionary in their simplicity. We're conducting the greatest experiment in galactic history, President Martinez told the Earth Assembly. We're proving that being refuge means more than just running from something. It means running towards something better. These three species, working together, are achieving things none could alone. The proof came 6 months later. The first joint colony ship, Hope's Horizon, prepared to depart for the Sagittarius sector. Its crew was 1/3 human, 1/3 Keplerian, and 1/3 Zealoty refugees. The ship itself was a marvel. Human engineering, Keplerian biological systems, and Zealoty crystal technology integrated into something new. Sarah stood on the bridge, looking at her mixed crew. Merdan had agreed to serve as navigation officer, though he'd requested Zealoty crew members not be assigned to a shift initially. Small steps. All stations report ready. Captain, her new first officer reported. A Zealoty named Zelkar, the same sub-commander who'd spoken out against his empire's actions months ago. He'd defected fully, bringing military intelligence that helped other Zealoty escape. Mr. Zelkar, what's the status of our colonists? 15,000 souls ready for departure, Captain. 5,000 each species. All volunteers who specifically requested mixed communities. His crystals shimmed with something like pride. They're calling themselves the Unity Generation. In the colonist sections, families were settling in. A human woman helped a Keplerian family configure their quarters for proper humidity. Zealoty engineers ensured everyone's life support needs were met. Children of all three species had already discovered the observation lounges and were pressed against the windows, watching stars together. Captain, Communications Officer Rodriguez announced, "We're receiving a transmission from the Galactic Council. They want to address the ship." The main screen filled with representatives of dozens of species. The ancient Etherian speaker gestured formally. "Hope's Horizon, you carry more than colonists. You carry proof that the galaxy can change, that ancient hatreds can give way to new understanding. The Council has voted unanimously. The Sagittarius sector is granted to the Unity Coalition of humans, Keplerians, and reformed Zealoty. May your example teach us all." But not everyone celebrated. As Hope's Horizon prepared for departure, Earth-First terrorists attempted to sabotage the launch. They were stopped by a joint human-Keplerian security team, with intelligence provided by Zealoty refugees who'd overheard the plot. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone. Three species protecting their shared future. Final preparations complete. Velmar reported from his position as colony administrator. "Captain, before we depart, the colonists have asked to make a statement." The screen changed to show the main colonist gathering area. Thousands of beings, human, Keplerian, and Zealoty, stood together. They'd organized themselves into a pattern that from above spelled out words in all three languages. From many, one. From loss, hope. From enemy, friend. A young girl stepped forward, half human, half Keplerian, one of the few hybrid children born since the refugee arrival. Such births were rare, but possible, proving the species were more compatible than anyone had imagined. She held hands with a human boy on one side and a young Zealoty on the other. "We go to the stars not as three peoples, but as one," she said, her voice clear and strong. "We carry the dreams of those who died, the hopes of those who live, and the promise of those yet to be born. We are the children of Earth's compassion, Kepler's resilience, and Zealothy's redemption. We are humanity's greatest achievement, not our ships or our technology, but our ability to see family in the face of strangers." As Hope's Horizon engaged its hyperdrive and disappeared into the cosmic dark, headed for new worlds and new possibilities, Sarah reflected on the journey. Less than a year ago, she'd made a choice to save 40,000 refugees. That choice had transformed not just humanity, but three civilizations. Back on Earth, the integration continued. Keplerian singing forests now grew on 6 continents. Zealoty crystal gardens created rainbow light shows that drew millions of visitors. Human cities adapted and evolved, becoming truly multi-species metropolitan centers. The new atmospheric processors, combining all three species' technology, had begun transforming Mars at an unprecedented rate. But perhaps the most important change was in the hearts and minds of ordinary beings. In schools where children of three species learned together, prejudice found no purchase. In workplaces where former enemies collaborated on projects, understanding grew. In communities where refugees had become neighbors, fear gave way to friendship. The Earth First movement dwindled as its members saw their own lives improve from alien contributions. Keplerian medicine had cured diseases humans had struggled with for centuries. Zealoty energy crystals provided clean power that ended Earth's energy crisis. Human creativity and adaptability had given both refugee species new hope and purpose. Commander, President Martinez called Sarah after Hope's Horizon departed. The Galactic Council has another proposition. 17 species that turned away the Keplerians have requested human guidance on refugee integration. You started something that's spreading across the galaxy. Sarah smiled, thinking of that scared Keplerian child with her toy bear, now living happily in New Geneva with her adoptive human family. Of the Zelothy teenager who'd won Earth's global science fair with her crystal-based water purification system. Of the human boy who'd learned to sing Keplerian lullabies to help refugee children sleep. Tell the Council, Sarah replied, that humanity is ready to teach what we've learned. That compassion is not weakness, but strength. That diversity is not a threat, but a gift. That choosing to help, even when it's hard, even when it's dangerous, is what lifts us all to something greater. As Earth rotated into another night, its cities glowed with more than electric light. Keplerian bioluminescence painted neighborhoods in soft purples and blues. Zelothy crystals created rainbow bridges between buildings. And in the mixed districts, where all three species lived side by side, the light was brightest of all, a visible symbol of what was possible when fear gave way to hope. The galaxy would remember this time not for its great battles or technological leaps, but for something far more profound, the moment when humanity taught the stars that refugee didn't mean burden, but opportunity. That enemy didn't mean forever. That different didn't mean dangerous. And in the Sagittarius sector, on 12 new worlds, the Unity generation began building cities where no one would ever be a refugee again, because everyone would be home. 5 years had passed since humanity shocked the galaxy by welcoming refugees from 2 warring species. The Unity colonies in the Sagittarius sector had grown from desperate experiments to thriving worlds that defied every prediction. But success had attracted attention, not all of it welcome. Captain Sarah Chun stood in the Grand Chamber of Unity Prime, the capital city of New Harmony, the first successfully integrated colony world. Representatives from all 3 species filled the amphitheater, their mixed families and hybrid children a living testament to what they'd achieved. But today's gathering wasn't a celebration. Citizens of Unity, Sarah began, her voice carrying across the chamber. We face our greatest challenge yet. The Hegemony Alliance has issued an ultimatum. They claim our integration experiment threatens the natural order of the galaxy. They demand we segregate our species and return to traditional boundaries or face military intervention. The chamber erupted in angry voices. A Zelothy engineer stood up, his crystals flashing indignant red. We fled segregation. We fled the hatred it breeds. My children are both human and Keplerian, a mother called out. Will the hegemony tell me to split them in half? Sarah raised her hand for silence. The hegemony represents 12 of the galaxy's oldest species. They believe mixing species leads to conflict that were a powder keg waiting to explode. They point to the riots last year, which we resolved through dialogue and justice, not separation, interrupted David Park-Velmar, one of the first human Keplerian hybrids, now serving as Unity's Minister of Integration. Sarah nodded. I agree, but the hegemony has given us 30 days to comply. After that, she didn't need to finish. Everyone knew the hegemony's military strength. In the crowd, an elderly human woman stood slowly. Maria Santos had been one of the first Earth citizens to house Keplerian refugees. Captain Chun, may I speak? Of course, Grandmother Santos. Sarah used the honorary title the community had given Maria. 5 years ago, my grandson was dying from Conway syndrome. Human medicine had given up. But healer Melvar, she gestured to a Keplerian in the audience, used her people's binaural techniques to save him. That same week, my grandson helped Melvar's daughter adapt to Earth gravity using exercises our physical therapist developed. Tell me, which part of that should be segregated? The healing? The helping? The hope? Her words sparked others. A Zelothy artist spoke of how human creativity had inspired her crystal sculptures to sing in ways her people had never imagined. A human farmer explained how Keplerian agricultural techniques had turned barren worlds into gardens. Former enemies spoke of becoming family. But The real surprise came from an unexpected source. Ambassador Zix of the Mordak, one of the species that had turned away the original refugees, stepped forward. Captain Chun, I carry a message not from the hegemony, but from the Silent Alliance. Gasps rippled through the chamber. The Silent Alliance was rumored, but never confirmed. Species working quietly to support Unity's experiment. 17 species stand with Unity, Zix continued. We've watched your colonies not with fear, but with envy. Our worlds stagnate under ancient divisions. Our young people see your broadcasts, species working together, achieving impossible things, and ask why we can't do the same. The hegemony knows this, Sarah said carefully. That's why they're threatening us. Yes, but they don't know we've been preparing. Captain, if Unity stands against the hegemony, you won't stand alone. Meanwhile, light years away on Earth, an emergency session of the Joint Human-Keplerian Zealothy Council convened. President Martinez, now bearing the weight of 5 years of integration challenges and triumphs, addressed the assembly. The hegemony's ultimatum isn't just about Unity colonies. It's about the precedent we've set. Keplerian refugees now serve in human government. Zealothy scientists lead our best research teams. We've proven that diversity strengthens rather than weakens. They fear what we represent. Velmar, promoted to Earth's first non-human admiral, turned to the assembly. My people have a saying, the river that accepts all streams becomes the mightiest. Humanity didn't just save us, they showed us a better way. I won't let fear undo what courage built. Crystal Singer Zelnaya, now director of Earth's Energy Department, harmonized agreement. The old way led to genocide, refugees, endless conflict. This new way has given us clean energy, medical breakthroughs, and children who see difference as gift, not threat. We choose the new way, but the debate wasn't unanimous. Senator Webb, evolved from his Earth first roots, but still cautious, raised concerns. The hegemony has weapons that could crack planets. Are we ready to risk everything for an ideal? A young voice answered from the public gallery. Mira, the Keplerian child once burned and speechless, now a teenager and Earth's youngest diplomatic attaché, stood tall. Senator Webb, you ask if we'll risk everything for an ideal. But it's not an ideal, it's my life. My best friend is human. My teacher is zealothy. My doctor is all three. You ask me to choose between them? I choose all. Her words sparked a standing ovation that crossed species lines. When it settled, President Martinez made the announcement that would define humanity's future. Earth and all human colonies stand with Unity. We will not segregate. We will not step backward. And if the hegemony wants a fight, they'll learn what 3 united species can accomplish. The preparation began immediately. But this wasn't traditional war planning. The Unity strategy, as historians would later call it, reflected the unique strengths of the Alliance. Keplerian bioengineers developed adaptive shields that could harmonize with both human and zealothy technology. Zealothy crystalsmiths created communication networks that operated faster than any single species had achieved. Human strategists, masters of unconventional thinking, designed defense plans that turned the colony's diversity into their greatest strength. But the real weapon was something the hegemony never expected: truth. Young beings across the galaxy had been secretly following Unity broadcasts for years. They'd seen human Keplerian children playing in bioluminescent parks. They'd watched zealothy human research teams cure diseases that had plagued civilizations for millennia. They'd witnessed former refugees becoming leaders, teachers, artists. An underground movement called Unity Symphony spread through hegemony space. Young hegemony citizens began questioning their elders' segregation policies. Secret gatherings formed where different species met to share ideas, inspired by Unity's example. The hegemony's deadline approached. Their fleet, 500 warships from 12 species, massed at the border of Unity space. But as they prepared to advance, something unprecedented happened. Aboard the hegemony flagship, junior officers from multiple species coordinated a simultaneous action. They didn't mutiny. They simply shared their screens with the galaxy. Every communication channel suddenly broadcast the same message. Testimonies from Unity colonies. A human Zealothy medical team explained how they developed a cure for the hegemony's own plague outbreak. A cure the hegemony leadership had suppressed because it came from contaminated mixed research. Keplerian human farmers showed how their integrated techniques could solve the famines plaguing hegemony outer worlds. Engineers of all three Unity species demonstrated technologies that only worked when different perspectives combined. Then came the children. Thousands of them, mixed heritage and pure alike, standing together in Unity squares. They sang a song that blended human harmonies, Keplerian biorhythms, and Zealothy crystal tones into something hauntingly beautiful. The Song of Tomorrow, they called it. Even hardened hegemony warriors found themselves moved. This is what you're here to destroy, the broadcast concluded. Not weapons or threats, but healing. Not conquest, but cooperation. Not weakness, but the strength that comes from standing together. The hegemony fleet hung frozen in space. On their bridges, officers looked at each other with new eyes. Some began to question orders that would silence those young voices forever. Back on Unity Prime, Sarah stood with her command team, a perfect representation of their achievement. Her first officer was Zelkar, the Zealothy who'd chosen conscience over empire. Her science officer was Dr. Park, the human who'd first validated Keplerian biotech. Her security chief was Mayor Dan, the Keplerian who'd lost everything but chose building over revenge. Hegemony fleet is holding position, Mayor Dan reported. No advance. But, Captain, I'm reading massive communication traffic between their ships. Encrypted, but the pattern suggests debate. On Earth, crowds gathered in every major city. Humans, Keplerians, and Zealothy stood together, broadcasting their unity to the stars. Similar scenes played out on Mars, Luna, and every human colony. The message was clear. Unity wasn't just an experiment in some distant sector. It was the future humanity had chosen. Then, from an unexpected source, came support that would tip the balance. The Etherian Collective, the galaxy's oldest and most respected civilization, broke 10,000 years of political neutrality. The ancient Etherian speaker appeared on every screen in the galaxy. The collective has observed for millennia. We have seen species rise and fall, empires built on division crumble to dust. Now we witness something new, species choosing cooperation over conflict, diversity over division. The Unity experiment represents evolution, not contamination. The Etherian Collective recognizes and protects the Unity Coalition. Any attack on them is an attack on galactic progress itself. The hegemony fleet wavered. Attacking Unity colonies was one thing. Defying the Etherians was quite another. But the final blow to their resolve came from within. Junior Commander Hextal of the Rigoran Guard, inspired by the broadcasts and his own conscience, opened communications to Unity Prime. Captain Chun, I speak for many junior officers across the hegemony fleet. We won't fire on children. We won't destroy hospitals where species work together to heal. We won't be the generation that chose fear over future. One by one, other junior officers joined the open channel. The hegemony's united front crumbled as younger members of each species declared their unwillingness to destroy what Unity had built. Admiral Korra, the hegemony fleet commander, finally appeared on screen. The ancient Saurian scales had dulled with age and the weight of command. Captain Chun, it seems the galaxy has changed while we weren't watching. Our young officers refuse orders. Our people broadcast Unity songs in our capitals. Perhaps we are the ones out of step with time. Admiral, Sarah replied gently, it's never too late to choose a different path. Unity's doors are open to all who come in peace. You would welcome even those who came to destroy you? A young voice interrupted, David Park Volmar, the hybrid who'd become a symbol of integration. Admiral, I'm living proof that supposed enemies can create something beautiful together. My mother's people were refugees. My father's people were their saviors. I exist because someone chose compassion over fear. How many miracles do you prevent by maintaining division? The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. Behind him, his bridge crew, young and old, multiple species, waited. Finally, he spoke words that would reshape the galaxy. Hegemony fleet, stand down. We need to reconsider everything. The celebration across Unity space was explosive. But Sarah knew this was just the beginning. The real work, transforming fear into understanding across the galaxy, would take generations. In the months that followed, delegations from Hegemony worlds visited Unity colonies. They saw Keplerian healing centers where all species were treated equally. They witnessed Zealothy power stations providing clean energy to entire worlds. They observed human schools where children of a dozen species learned together. Many went home changed. Some Hegemony worlds began pilot integration programs. Others opened their borders to refugees for the first time in centuries. The rigid structures that had defined galactic civilization for millennia began to soften. But the most profound change came from the generation that had grown up with Unity as reality rather than experiment. Young beings who couldn't imagine being separated from their multi-species friends. Artists who created works blending traditions no single species could achieve. Scientists whose mixed teams solved problems that had stymied homogeneous groups for centuries. On New Harmony, the first Unity University opened its doors. Students from across the galaxy, including many from former Hegemony worlds, came to learn not just science or art, but integration itself. How to build communities where difference was strength. How to resolve conflicts through understanding rather than separation. How to create from diversity rather than despite it. Sarah, now bearing the title Unity Admiral, walked through the university campus. In one courtyard, a Zealothy student taught crystalline music to a mixed group. In another, human and Keplerian students worked together on atmosphere processors that would help terraform dead worlds. Everywhere, the future was being built by hands, tentacles, and appendages working together. Admiral, Mira approached. Now a full ambassador despite her young age. The Galactic Council wants to know if Unity will accept membership as a collective entity rather than separate species seats. Sarah smiled. What do you think we should answer, Ambassador? Myra's 4 eyes sparkled with certainty. That Unity isn't 3 species working together. It's one people with beautiful diversity. We accept, but only if they're ready to recognize that the old categories no longer define us. As the sun set over New Harmony, a sun shared by human, Keplerian, and Zealothy alike, Sarah reflected on the journey. From 40,000 desperate refugees to a galactic movement. From fear to hope. From division to unity. The galaxy would never be the same. And in the growing communities where species mixed freely, where children played without knowing they were supposed to be different, where former enemies had become family, the true victory was clear. They hadn't just saved refugees or prevented a war. They'd proven that the future didn't belong to those who built walls, but to those who built bridges. In schools across Unity space, children learned a new history, not of separate species with separate destinies, but of the day humanity chose compassion and changed the course of galactic civilization. They learned that refugee was just another word for neighbor who hadn't arrived yet. That enemy was just another word for friend you hadn't understood yet. And in the vast darkness between stars, Unity ships carried a message to every corner of the galaxy. There is another way. A better way. A way where diversity isn't feared but celebrated, where difference isn't divided but united, where the stranger at your door might be the key to your salvation. The hegemony's threat had failed, but more than that, it had catalyzed something beautiful. Proof that the galaxy's future lay not in separation, but in the messy, complicated, wonderful reality of beings choosing to stand together despite their differences. As new refugees arrived at Unity borders from conflicts old and new, they found not closed doors but open arms, not suspicion but welcome, not a temporary shelter but a permanent home. Because Unity had learned the greatest truth, that strength came not from sameness, but from the courage to see family in unfamiliar faces. The revolution that began with 40,000 war refugees had become a galactic transformation. And it all started with humans doing what others called impossible. Saying yes when everyone else said no, choosing love when others chose fear, and proving that the stars were vast enough for all who sought shelter among them. 20 years. 2 decades since humanity had welcomed 40,000 war refugees and transformed the galaxy. The Unity Coalition now spanned 37 worlds, with more joining each year. But on this anniversary, something unprecedented was about to unfold. Admiral Sarah Chun, her hair now touched with gray, stood before the Grand Assembly of Unity Prime. Representatives from over 100 species filled the massive chamber. Not just the original 3, but dozens who joined the great experiment. The chamber itself was a marvel, grown by Keplerian bioarchitects, powered by Zealoty crystals, and designed with human aesthetics that welcomed all. Citizens of Unity, Sarah began, her voice carrying the weight of history. Today we don't just celebrate an anniversary. We witness a moment many thought impossible. Please welcome our special guest, Emperor Zarthak of the Zealoty Empire. The chamber fell silent as the massive doors opened. Emperor Zarthak entered, his crystalline form radiating the deep purple of humility, a color rarely seen in Zealoty leadership. Behind him walked a smaller figure that drew gasps from the crowd, a young Zealoty-Keplerian hybrid, thought to be biologically impossible until recently. Admiral Chun. The Emperor's voice resonated through the chamber. I come not as conqueror or negotiator, but as one seeking wisdom. This child, he gestured to the hybrid youth, is my granddaughter. Her mother, my daughter, fell in love with a Keplerian refugee on one of our border worlds. Their union was forbidden, yet life found a way. The hybrid child stepped forward, her form a mesmerizing blend of crystalline structures and bioluminescent skin. I am Zaramel. In the Empire, I'm called an abomination. Here, I see others like me walking free. I want that freedom for all mixed children in Empire space. Sarah studied the Emperor, remembering their confrontation 20 years ago when he'd been a military commander threatening refugees. Your Majesty, what do you seek from Unity? The Emperor's crystals shifted to deep blue. Sincerity. I seek to learn how you succeeded where my empire failed. We rule through separation and strength, yet our worlds stagnate. Young Zealoty flee to Unity space, seeking the freedom to love whom they choose, to think new thoughts, to build rather than merely maintain. My advisors call it contamination. But when I look at my granddaughter, I see evolution. From the assembly, Velmar rose. The aged Keplerian leader bore scars from the destruction of his homeworld, yet his 4 eyes held no hatred. Emperor Zarthak, your forces destroyed my world. 3 billion of my people died. Why should we trust you now? Because, the Emperor replied, his form dimming with shame, I've spent 20 years watching the survivors of that atrocity build something greater than anything the Empire achieved in millennia. You took our refugees, Zealoty who defied us, and helped them flourish. Your forgiveness transformed them into builders of worlds rather than destroyers. I need to understand how. A voice called out from the